Ayukui, Nagnamalita. I'm gonna try to do this quick, and I'm hoping that you don't hear I'm hoping my car isn't too loud. I'm not gonna be doing this while driving just because balancing my DSLR on my dashboard isn't conducive to safe driving. I need a vlogging camera because this doesn't work, and neither does my cell phone. My cell phone works, it just, anyway. But yeah, I figured I would be starting another reading vlog. I haven't really vlogged since February, since our Oregon trip, and even that one I was not happy with the results of what I did end up vlogging, and that was one of my goals for 2024, was to vlog better or be better at vlogging, and the only way to do that is to vlog more. So I started reading Sisters of a Lost Nation last night by Nick Medina, and I enjoyed the first couple chapters that I read so much that I had annotated and was really kind of excited. So I thought it would be a really fun reading vlog to kind of have it be a little spoilery and tell you my thoughts as I read. So I also want to get this done before the end of May. It's currently May 23rd, Thursday. Typically this would be my Friday, but the academic year is over, so I'm on my summer schedule, which is Monday through Friday. So this is the longest week ever. It is, I think, the first week technically the second week, and it's throwing me off so much. Sisters of a Lost Nation. I did try listening to it because it is available on Spotify, and I just wasn't clicking with the narration style. So, but yeah. That's what this is about. I need to get to work. I'm running late. Okay. Well, absolutely no point in taking my camera with me to try to update you at work. It was just a really heavy meeting day, so my bad. But yes, Sisters of a Lost Nation. Hopefully you can hear me okay because the wind's pretty strong today. I am almost 30 pages in, so at page 27 I am starting to tab it up a little bit. And I don't know how other people tab. I don't think I've ever actually like seen a video or like watched a video. I've seen videos of like how people tab, but I have never watched them. Maybe I should, but like right off the bat we have these I don't even know if you can see the color, these really light pink tabs where I'm just underlining and some of the lighter parts. So like this first one is pulling on the scraggly beard he'd barely been able to grow, which is referring to a Native man, Anna's uncle, which made me just laugh because that is a common thing within the Native community, is that men have a hard time growing facial hair or body hair. Yellow tabs so far, like I highlighted a lot, and that is just some of the environmental justice that Anna's already looking at. So we see that her reservation is starting to get, or her tribe is starting to get more money or more income due to a casino that they recently built. So she's seeing her reservation change. Part of that change is blacktop or asphalt roads. And the problem with that is that it retains heat, particularly in the cooler months. And what that is doing is bringing frogs onto the roads and getting them run over because they're trying to retain that heat that's left over in the asphalt as the nights get cooler. So they're trying to get warm on this asphalt and they get run over. I thought it was a really interesting section where like these frogs, where she knows would be like their legs would be, they would be harvested for a meal anywhere else in Louisiana, are being run over on her reservation. So there's like concern with that. So I just kind of highlighted that bit. And then the red, I was trying to match the cover of the book, which looks like this, are like the scary bits. So like there's she believes a rolling head of this chief that, because in the intro we get a story that her uncle tells when she's 7 years old, so she's probably too young to hear this story. Basically he tells her about his theory of what's happening to missing women, in that, because he works in the graveyard, and there were 3 graves that were dug up, one of them being their last chief. And he expected, grave robbing, but what was actually missing was the head of the chief, which he believes is rolling around and can like overextend its jaw not quite alive, not quite dead, and just consume people. The reason he knows this is because there was footprints going to the grave, but none coming away from him. So, of course, she hears this at 7 years old, and it's like frightened her ever since. I thought it was a creepy description. I'm like, as I was reading it, was reminded of the illustrations that were done in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I reread, maybe it was last year. I read it during Banned Books Week, I remember. Not purposely, it just happened to work out really well. But it had this illustrator. It gave me that vibe, and I think that's almost what I kind of need in the book, because as it was continuing on about how she saw something rolling towards her, and it was like very much human shaped, all I could think of was the bouncing heads in Spirited Away, and it gave it a kind of comical feel. I don't think the book is going for. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. It's very nostalgic in a way, because, and that's one thing I was surprised about, was one, I was surprised it was set in Louisiana. I like the idea of Louisiana. I've never been, so I can't say for sure if I actually like it or not. Brad and I talk about going to New Orleans all the time, and I feel like we don't hear about Indigenous people within the South very often, unless it has to do with Texas and Mexico, that we're getting a newer I'm getting a newer perspective in terms of folks indigenous to what is now called Louisiana. And then the other part is when it's set in, because she runs back home and her sister is sprawled out on the couch upside down. Her foot is on top of the headrest, her head is kind of dangling off the cushion towards the ground, which I feel like is a very like 90s thing to do. Like, I don't know, it just kind of gave me that vibe, and I'm just like, okay. And talked about her sister's finger, sorry if you can hear my cat hacking, wrapping her finger around the telephone cord, and that immediately was like, I'm like, what year is this set in? Because I don't know if a whole lot of kids now wouldn't understand what that is. I'm just like, yeah, it's a landline. She's using a landline. Oh, and it was confirmed that because her sister wants a cell phone, it's the new thing, that it's becoming popular, and she doesn't want to be the only kid without one. So it's mid to late 90s, which I'm enjoying. It was a fun surprise. So yeah, I feel like I already, with this book, I'm like just kind of having a fun time with it. Last little update for right now, but there was a language mentioned, so it's like, it was my other like lighthearted tab, the light tab, that her sister was speaking gibberish at breakneck speed. It's called Idig, IDIG, and Anna she can catch a few words, but she doesn't know how to speak it, but her sister Grace does know. And it's basically how they explain it, how Medina explains it, is the infix Idig was inserted at certain points within each word to disguise it. Ball became Bidigal. What became Whatigot. Sorry. Hello became Hidigalarigo. What got me with this is that I used to do something similar, but I never knew it had a name. I understand. So basically, idig doesn't replace the vowel, but it goes in front of the vowel. How I understood it was that it, rather than it being idig, it started with the vowel that you were putting it in front of. So instead of whatigot for what, it would have been whatigot. Yeah. So the first I in idig would be replaced with the vowel that you would be inserting it in front of. So whatigot instead of whatigot. So I just thought that was really interesting, because I'm like, okay, like, use a similar language thing, not necessarily for like talk on the phone so that my family didn't know what I was talking about with my friends. None of my friends and none of my family understood what, once I got it, never understood it, and no one bothered to learn. So I just kind of did it to myself, or just kind of had fun by myself. My brothers kind of understood it, but they said it sounded like I was underwater. I just thought that was like fun. I don't know. Reminded me of not only when I did it, but it reminded me just like Medina talking about this language even though it's like kind of a made up fun language, kind of like Pig Latin. It just kind of, I like when books talk about language. I'm not the best at it. I'm not a linguist, but I try to wrap my head around it because it's something that I wish I would have got more into. I took Spanish in elementary school. They had me take French in elementary school, and then in high school I took French again. In college I took Spanish. And I also tried to teach myself my local language, so Yurok, but my mom had tried to teach me Hoopa, which is another local language, and I did tried to do a lot of language work in a previous job, where we were going through all the local languages. So I had to constantly work with language speakers to figure out how to phonetically spell the words, which technically they're already phonetically spelled the way they're supposed to sound, which I didn't know either. So it was just interesting. I think I recently, what was it called? It was this book. Sorry if I can't remember what it's called, but I remember what it looks like. It's like that cream with like, it's of that woman who is native but didn't grow up native and is learning more about her culture, which I believe is in northern Washington. Has a story for each female member of her family going back, because she's the last one that could be a part of her in her bloodline. Thinning blood, that's what it's called. So she also talked about language, and even though I didn't get it to an extent, I appreciated what I was able to get, like the glottal stop, so that I don't even know how to do it. I don't know if it's correct either, so yeah. Anyway, so that's my update for now. We're gonna start dinner here soon, and then hopefully I can read a bit more of this. Like I said, I'm trying, I don't know if I said this in my earlier part, but I am hoping to finish this book by the end of May, by the end of May, by the 1st of June at the very latest. I feel like it's going to be a bit of an issue because I have been having fun starting all the books in May, but not finishing any of them. Okay, so it's been a couple days. I've only just gotten to like just under 100 pages of Sisters of the Lost Nation. Yeah, my weekends are not typically for reading. It's usually for catching up on, not for physically reading. It's usually for catching up on chores around the house, as well as listening to audiobooks, because I typically listen as I do chores, just because I feel like I have to be busy or have to be productive while at home, which I'm trying to get out of the mindset of, but it's really hard when I lack laundry. Or I lack clean clothes. So anyway, I will say, in terms of an update, I don't have the book with me right now, but day 9, because the chapters are split up by days and we're having 2 timelines. I think it's slowly, we're seeing like before Grace goes missing and after Grace goes missing. But day 9, before Grace goes missing, is her name Anna? I think her name's Anna. Our main character goes to school, and it's just brutal. She has been picked on. We get that first thing in the story that they start making fun of her because it's a joke that a bunch of people nominated her to be homecoming king, and like everyone was jokingly like bowing down to her, going, "Oh, your majesty," and like it was a big joke, like she knew it was a joke, and she hated it. So when she comes back to school, I think the following week, someone has taped up like a dollar store doll that's completely naked on her locker, and the only, like, someone sheared off its hair, which I think is something she had recently done, as it was hinted at. And apparently the only way you could tell it was a female doll was because of these small lumps that were considered breasts. So my feeling is that Anna doesn't consider herself stereotypical or traditionally beautiful. She's mentioned before that like her sister feels that her brother had got all the like beautiful genes or whatever, but she's still happy she's not the ugliest one in the family, which was really, I don't know how I feel about that. But my feeling is that she's being picked on because she's not in a different spot because my battery died. But I feel like Anna is just doesn't have the traditional feminine look, potentially has more traditional masculine look. I don't know. I feel like what they're hinting at, or what Nick Medina is hinting at, is that Anna is being bullied to where people are questioning her gender, which is sad and it's none of their business, but it's also relatable. It's something that I was bullied on in high school as well. So because I assume because I layered, but I also wore particularly baggy clothes because I developed pretty early on, and immediately people pointed it out to others in front of me. So 7th, 8th grade, I started wearing really baggy clothes to hide it. And then I particularly wasn't interested in makeup. I'm still not. There's elements where I will if I want to, but I don't typically wear it. Like I'm not wearing it now. There's days where I feel more confident in my makeup skills to wear it, but otherwise I'm not typically. But so yeah, I was constantly wearing baggy clothes, and there were particularly these boys at the time that would constantly harass me and loudly ask each other, is that a boy or a girl, as I walked past. So whole day 9 aspect was just horrible, but also not just for the bullying, but because Anna does go to the principal and she's kind of seen as this nuisance because she isn't afraid to ask for help from these administrators, but these administrators are exhausted by her and don't do their due diligence and think that ultimately she's being picked on for a reason and that she's the one that needs to change. And they tell her, and it's so depressing and so sad because it's something that I wasn't told specifically because I never I only went to teachers that I trusted. I didn't trust our administration because they seemed more concerned about stats for their school than they did anything else. It was something that my brother constantly heard, was that he was the problem, not anybody. Like it felt like no one was listening to him. And so that whole day 9 with Anna was just so bad. By the time I finished the first part of day 9, I didn't even highlight anything. I've been annotating like crazy, but that whole thing, like at the very end, I just went, what the fuck? And underlined it with all of my different highlights that I've been doing, annotating. Oh, just like hit me in the heart. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my update for now. That's why I really just wanted to tell you. So hopefully I'll update you more here in the next couple days when I read more into it. Okay, I'm hoping the sound on this is okay. I'm actually using a couple of equipments from our library, but wanted to give you a quick update. I am super close. I'm a little over halfway. I am just past the 200 page mark last night. I have the rest of the day to finish this, and then actually I am scheduled to be at the live show with Kayla from Booksandlala, the host of the Literally Dead Book Club herself, as well as Erin. I'll have both their channels linked down below if you don't know who they are, but you should definitely go check them out. I have been subscribed to Erin for a little bit, thanks to, I believe, Jan from Jan Agaton. But yeah, thoughts on it so far. I feel like it's slowing down a little bit. So last night I read a decent chunk. I didn't end up like annotating or putting any tabs in it, though there are a couple things I do want to tab just for my sake, but otherwise, like, I feel like it's an easy enough read. I feel like a lot of the chapters go by really quickly. I think one of my issues though is that it kind of feels meandering here in the middle. I feel like we kind of had, I feel like this was definitely like where I tabbed a lot in the beginning. It was really enticing and like trying to figure it out, and now it's kind of meandering here in the middle. It's starting to slow down a little bit. I'm kind of like wanting to get to the point. We are getting more of Anna in terms of like how she's feeling in terms of like gender identity. We get hints that she's not comfortable, viewed in a certain way, and has questioned a mentor or an adult friend of hers that had gone missing when she was 7. Like, the adult mentor seems to have known Anna before Anna knew herself, and now as Anna is 17 is really starting to question, really kind of thinking about what that, I think it was Miss Shelby, I think, saw Anna before Anna saw herself. The gender identity questioning is really interesting. It's not something I had expected in this book, but so far I think it's, I mean, I can't say for sure if it's well done because I've not questioned my gender and identity, and so I can't say for sure, but I thought it added another element of like information and depth to Anna, just because that's definitely one thing I'm kind of yearning for, is that we get some depth from her. There's definitely some aspects of her that I'm just like, a lot of the red flags from Fox and a lot of the red flags throughout the community, I'm just like, okay, but why, but as well as I understand her need and want to be closer to her sister. So I don't know, it's just interesting. So hold on, I'm gonna move. A walkway right behind you, and someone was coming up it and I didn't feel comfortable, but they walked by and really just didn't care. So, but yeah, I feel like Anna and Gran seem to be the only two people that I'm like really attached to in this story. Like, I want more of the sibling dynamic. I understand that Anna wants a better connection like she used to have with Grace, and trying to figure that out has been, and like navigating that complexity now that Grace is in the same high school as Anna, and that Grace is trying to navigate high school with Anna's reputation, kind of her reputation feeding off Anna's. Not really depressing. It's just, it's a sad dynamic. I'm hoping I can finish by the end of the day, to be able to be prepared for the live show tomorrow. So that's really exciting. Yeah. So yeah, sorry that this hasn't, I'm hoping to get some B-roll, but ultimately, I apologize if there's not very much B-roll, because all I've been really doing is going to work, to home, and just trying to read. This is one of the reasons I have issue vlogging, because I feel like a lot of the things that I do, one, I can't necessarily show you because I work in a library, but also I don't find it all that interesting, and don't know why you would find it interesting. So, and it takes me, I mean, Kayla said that she was gonna start the book yesterday, so I started it when she originally asked me last week, and I'm still not done. Sorry, the lighting's all weird. So it just, we all read at our own pace, but I know that I can read relatively slower, so I feel like that's kind of a thing that I'm a little insecure about. So anyway, whatever, I'm done with my update. So 12 hours before the live show with Kayla from Booksandlala and Erin from ErinMegan, I finished Sisters of the Lost Nation. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I ran out of red tabs, which were like the scary portions of it. So, but there wasn't very much that there's occasional few that I had highlighted and wanted to tab throughout the middle of the book towards the end. I think basically it was a mix of things in terms of feeling like I still agree with my earlier comment that it felt like a little meandery towards the middle, towards the end. At the end, like the last quarter, probably more the last eighth or so of the book, it definitely started to pick up again as we were getting some reveals. None of the reveals were surprising, in all honesty. At least not to me. Yeah, it was a heavy book. There was, I knew it was going to be at some points, and for the most part, I was doing pretty good. And then there was a particular moment, where I damn near, like, my eyes were watering. And then particularly the scariest moment was when we went into the epilogue and we still hadn't found Grace. And my heart dropped. Whew, I can feel myself getting teary again. Oh my goodness. Because that's the unfortunate reality. Like, I literally just finished it, and I think I'm still processing. So my apologies. Okay. Okay. I don't know how to rate this. So just given that reaction, I tend, when it comes to reading books, I really do think about the emotional impact that it has on me. I will probably still say it's 4.5, 4.75 stars, because it doesn't feel like a 5-star. Yes, this obviously has an emotional impact on me, but it's also a very heavy and emotional topic. And I tell you why. So, Nick Medina's accuracy when it comes to the jurisdiction of reservations, as well as like comparatively to towns, to states. Reservations are federal. So when it comes to tribal police, it's different, tribe to tribe, depending on if they're able to work something out with the county that they're a part of. So there's that frustration. This was set in the early 90s or mid 90s when cell phones were first starting to become popular and available for people, like normal people, not just military. It's also but know that it hasn't really gotten better, the awareness of it. I guess I feel like technology's gotten better, so in a way it kind of feels like there's more being said, that it almost feels like it's noticeable. But I think it also depends on who you're friends with. It depends on the algorithm, right? So yeah, we're trying to make it more aware, based off the technology that we have now comparatively to what we had in the mid to late 90s. But it just based off of traditional media, news outlets, it feels relatively the same. In all honesty, it still feels like this nation doesn't care. Yeah. There's, I mean, Nick Medina's author's note had really good points in it, and I highly suggest you read that if you haven't, if you've read this book. But there were so many things within this book that I related to, and I enjoyed the fact that Nick Medina, because it's something as someone who has thought about writing a book before, in terms of like, how do I write about a tribe when, like, I'm in rural Iraq. I grew up Hoopa. Most of my family is Karuk and Shasta. How do I write a book based off any one of those tribes without feeling like having this false, like I shouldn't be the one writing about it. And I liked Medina's approach to it in terms of making Dakota up and have it as a conglomeration of a bunch of different tribes, and like being able to pinpoint, I based this part off of Cheyenne legend, I based this part off of Wintu. That's great. That epilogue got me. The just sheer drop of my heart when we got to the epilogue and we still hadn't found grace, and that realization that is the reality for a lot of Native families. And I just kind of went, oh fuck. And he mentions that in like earlier depictions of these drafts that he had for this book, that she wasn't going to be found because of that reality. I think a lot of this reaction too is fear. Because it was only a couple years ago that my own tribe put out an emergency notice to all of its members advising women not to go out by themselves in this county or in surrounding counties because of how many women were going missing. and with potential new industry coming through, and the stats that support the fact that industry is what brings in strangers and that brings in new people to take advantage. I think I'm going to just kind of think on this for a bit and kind of prep for tomorrow's live show. I'll update you guys again later once I've calmed down a little bit. Feels like an open mood. I feel like a sob ready to like just jump out of my throat. It's like right behind it. I can just feel it. So yeah, I'll do that. Sorry. I know a whole lot of people aren't comfortable with emotion. I know I don't tend to be, especially when it's a very vulnerable thing, but sometimes we have to be vulnerable in order to get a message across. So, okay, I'll talk to y'all later. Okay, so I just got done with the live show with Kayla's Literally Dead Book Club like a little bit ago, and I think it helped in one, pausing for a minute after finishing the book last night, as well as kind of seeing what Erin from ErinMegan and Kayla from Booksandlala thought of the book, as well as some of the comments of that live show, to kind of just round out my own thoughts on it. I am sticking with a 4.5 star. I am sticking with a 4.5 star. Ultimately, it's great messaging in terms of missing emergent Indigenous women, in terms of Two-Spirit, in terms of the complicated jurisdictional issues and racism when it comes to law enforcement, whether on the tribe and off the tribe and tribal lands. Yeah, it was just... yeah, I thought that was like all really done. I loved and connected with the fact that it was in the 90s. As well as related to a lot of the things that the reservation was going through. Anna's concerns with the changes on the reservation in terms of casino and money and development, and how it ultimately changes their ultimate, like, everyone's goals in terms of just trying to line their pockets, as well as power, as well as environmental issues. So I really appreciated that. Despite the fact that this is, and like I saw this within the comments or the live chat, was that this was ultimately a 3-star because it wasn't as much horror as people were expecting. So with the understanding that this is going to be more reality horror in terms of this is the reality for a lot of Indigenous people, missing and murdered Indigenous women, people, Two-Spirit, that this happens all the time. This is our reality. As you know what, I might just cut that entire clip, but as I was trying to say last night, that, like, you know, this is ultimately our reality, and it's something that we have to live with every day. And the fact that, like, a couple years ago, my own tribe had to put out an emergency, had to go into a state of emergency because of how many missing Indigenous women there were within our own tribe. And there's like several other tribes around in this area. So like, how, if it was affecting the largest one in this area, how else, like, who have the resources, the tribal police, the now the programs to try to find these people, how is that affecting some of the smaller tribes that don't have that access, that don't have those resources, that don't have that money? So yeah, that is the unfortunate, like, reality horror, and I know that's not what a lot of people are looking for, but know that I think in the horror element in terms of that, spot on, as well as, you know, racism and jurisdictional issues. In terms of like the horror in terms of fantastical or paranormal or, you know, just creepy horror, it was lacking. I think Kayla, Erin, and I had all kind of agreed on that, in that like there was this rolling head and we weren't sure like what it was, but it didn't have as much of a presence as I think we had wanted, as well as even with the important messages of MMIW, that ultimately a lot of the action part of it in terms of like the bad things happening were happening off page. So it is very much young adult, which is what I thought going into this, but apparently it was marketed more for adult, I guess, during the year this came out. So I guess last year it was in the Goodreads horror, Goodreads like year picks for horror, and a lot of people thought that was misrepresentation. And to a degree, I feel like it's a fine line of just like, I don't think it's going to be necessarily what people are looking for until in terms of creepy horror, but it is horror nonetheless because it's the realities of Indigenous life. Yeah. I also feel like there was a lack of connection in some way. We kind of went over, like, I'll link the live show down below if you ever want to check that out, but just trying to summarize my thoughts on it, influenced by that live show. I also believe that there wasn't as much of a connection as I would have liked there to be, not only with Anna, but with some of her relatives. We get the connection between her and Grace to a degree. I kind of wish it could have been pushed more, because then it would have felt like there was more at risk. Like, not to say that her sister going missing is not a risk, it obviously is, but more of a connection for us as the reader, I think, mostly because, and I think that Kayla and Erin made this a good point, that there was a scene in here particularly where Grace essentially betrayed Anna and kind of enforced that element that ultimately Grace's family, and despite that terrible decision that Grace did in betraying Anna, Anna's still gonna find her. That doesn't mean that Grace deserves to be a missing and possibly murdered Indigenous person. So I think I agree that that was intentional by Nick Medina. But I still wish there would have been more of a connection in terms of, you know, Anna and Robbie and Grace, the kids and their parents. Like, obviously their parents were going through a hard time. Like, everyone was going through a hard time in terms of pressure. So, my neighbor talking by, this is embarrassing. So my neighbor walked by and had her Rottweiler, and my cat didn't appreciate that at all. Did you? No, you didn't appreciate that dog coming over here. You're okay. So yeah. But yeah, more of a connection in terms of family aspect, because I think, I mean, families are completely diverse in terms of not only how they identify, but also how they relate to each other. I think that's one thing I'm always kind of looking for when it comes to sibling dynamics, is that a lot of sibling dynamics that I have found, and I'm almost kind of disappointed in, is when, like, there's no issue between the siblings, like they're hunky-dory, and that makes me feel bad as a person, as an older sibling, of like, did I not do enough? Because I think that's, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to explain that. Yeah, so I think that's overall my thoughts on it. I will be continuing on, not to say that this is a series, but Nick Medina does have his sophomore novel out, which is Indian Burial Ground, which is on my 24 of 2024. But yeah, I do plan on reading Indian Burial Ground, which I completely didn't know, and it wasn't until Kayla had mentioned that actually follows a character that is in Sisters of the Lost Nation. Noemi did not make that connection, but as soon as she said it, it suddenly makes sense. So they're not sequels of one another, but they are within the same universe, which I think is really cool. So yeah, so that is my vlog for Sisters of the Lost Nation. Let me know if you've read it. Let me know what your thoughts were on it. Yeah, And thank you so much for watching and supporting. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you have yet to do so, and I don't know if we can do a hand print. Why don't we do a toad or frog emoji? If you've made it to the end of this and don't want to answer the questions or whatever. But yeah, let's do a frog emoji. Otherwise, yeah, I hope that you are in the mental health to enjoy your reading. I will see you in another video very soon. Chew.